The first thing that hits you is the sound. Not the usual steady murmur of hospital life, but the sharp, frantic alarms of a full cardiac arrest echoing down the hallway like a warning bell. Nurses rush past, carts rattle, and the sliding doors of Trauma Room 3 snap open as if pulled by the weight of something unseen. Inside, under blistering fluorescent lights, Dr. Daniel Carter stands at the head of the bed, sleeves rolled, eyes locked in the calm focus only 18 years of experience can forge. He's seen hundreds of codes. He's saved lives and lost them. But tonight, something feels different, even if he can't explain why. A middle-aged man lies motionless on the stretcher, skin waxy, chest rising only with the forced thrusts of the ventilator. The air smells of antiseptic and adrenaline, metallic and cold. A nurse calls out the rhythm, compressions ongoing, ventilating. The defibrillator pads glisten against the man's chest as another shock is prepared. Dr. Carter steps in, voice steady, commanding the room with practiced certainty. Charge to 200, clear. The body jumps, then settles again into stillness. Everything is clinical, controlled chaos, until it isn't. As the team cycles through compressions and medications, Dr. Carter suddenly slows. His hands hover above the patient's sternum. A ripple of something, some sensation he can't categorize, brushes through him like a cold wave. He straightens, glancing briefly over his shoulder, certain someone is standing behind him. But the corner is empty. There's only the crash cart, the wall clock ticking mercilessly toward the edge of life, and the fading smell of disinfectant hanging heavy in the air. For the first time in his career, he feels watched. He swallows hard, telling himself it's just the heat of the moment, the intensity of the code. But then the sensation sharpens. A thin breath of cold air glides along the back of his neck, impossibly targeted, as if someone is leaning close enough to whisper. His fingers tremble, not enough to be noticed, but enough for him to feel. He blinks, shakes it off, forces his focus back to the patient. Resume compressions, he orders, voice slightly tighter than before. The team continues, unaware of the silent battle unfolding inside the physician at the center of the storm. Time stretches. The patient's heart rhythm flickers between chaos and nothingness. Epinephrine surges through his veins. The ventilator hisses like a machine trying to breathe life into something already slipping away. Then, a sudden spike on the monitor. A heartbeat, thin, fragile, but real. "Pulse check," Dr. Carter says, leaning in. The nurse nods. "We have a pulse." Relief washes through the room like a collective exhale. They've brought him back. They've done their job. The alarm's quiet, replaced by the steady beeping of a rhythm that should not have returned. But as the adrenaline fades, Dr. Carter can't shake what he felt. He can't dismiss the cold breath, the presence that wasn't there, the way the atmosphere seemed to thicken for just a moment, pressing against him like a warning. He glances again at that same corner of the room, still empty, still wrong. While the patient is stabilized and transferred for post-resuscitation care, Dr. Carter remains rooted in place, hands resting on the side rails of the bed he just fought to pull back from the edge. Something inside him whispers that the night isn't over, that whatever brushed against him during the code wasn't done. And he's right, because in the next few minutes, after the chaos quiets, after the pulse steadies, after the normalcy returns, Dr. Daniel Carter will experience something that challenges everything he believes about medicine, consciousness, and the thin line we pretend separates the living from whatever waits beyond. For most people, the sight of a heart monitor flatlining is the embodiment. As he reads through the report, the wife yelling for him to stay with us, please stay with us. Dr. Carter imagines the terror in that living room, the feeling of watching someone you love vanish behind closed eyelids. He's seen families break in front of him 100 times, but somehow this one feels heavier, more personal. Maybe it's the daughter. Maybe it's the randomness of it all. Maybe it's the sense, however irrational, that something else is circling this case. While adjusting leads on the patient's chest, he glances at the heart monitor. For a moment, everything is normal. Then a flicker, a strange, erratic pattern appears for barely half a second. Not just artifact, not static. It almost looks intentional, like a rhythm with structure, purposeful. His brow furrows. He steps closer. But before he can analyze it further, the waveform corrects itself as if nothing happened. A nurse notices his expression. "Loose wire?" she asks. Dr. Carter nods quickly, but the explanation sits wrong in his gut. He's seen poor leads 1,000 times. This felt different, almost like the monitor was reacting to something he couldn't see. And then it happens, the moment that makes his stomach drop. A single tear rolls down the side of Michael's face. Not the reflexive moisture of irritated eyes, not the random fluid shift of an unconscious patient, but a tear, slow, heavy, deliberate, like the kind that falls when a man is grieving something he hasn't found words for. The room goes still. A nurse freezes mid-step. Another looks at Dr. Carter with wide, uneasy eyes. No one speaks. No one knows what to make of it. Michael remains deeply unconscious. His eyes don't flutter. His muscles don't twitch. The ventilator continues its rhythmic, mechanical breathing, but the atmosphere grows suffocating, as though the air is thick with unspoken warning. Dr. Carter's pulse quickens. That cold pressure from the earlier code returns, not as sharp this time, but as a quiet awareness wrapping around him from behind. He glances over his shoulder. Nothing. And yet, something. Something he cannot see, but cannot deny. By the time he steps out of the room, the story has shifted. This is no longer a typical post-arrest recovery. Something is happening that doesn't fit into charts or data. Something neither medical textbooks nor years of experience have prepared him for. And the night is only getting stranger. Dr. Carter returns to the room a short while later, expecting, hoping, to find things settled. Nurses have finished their checks. The ventilator hums in a softer rhythm, and Michael lies perfectly still beneath the warm glow of the overhead lamp. On the surface, everything appears normal. But the moment he steps inside, the atmosphere shifts again. It hits him like a wall of cold air, brushing past his shoulders before settling into the corners of the room like an unseen fog. His breath catches in his chest, an instinctive reaction he tries to hide even from himself. He moves toward the bedside, telling himself this is stress, exhaustion, nothing more. But as he adjusts the IV line and checks the sedative drip, he feels it, the pressure. It settles behind him slowly, deliberately, like a person leaning in far too close. It's not a breeze, it's not temperature, it's presence, a weight in the air that shouldn't exist. He turns sharply. No one is standing there. The empty corner stares back at him as if mocking the very idea that anything could be wrong. The steady beeping of the heart monitor should be reassuring, but instead, Dr. Carter froze. "Michael? Can you hear me?" For a moment, Michael didn't respond. His face remained slack, pale, calm. Then his fingers twitched, once, then again. Subtle but intentional, as if reaching for something just out of frame. Nurses noticed and hurried over, exchanging looks that echoed Dr. Carter's shock. Patients didn't wake like this, not smoothly, not deliberately. Then, with visible effort, Michael opened his eyes. They weren't confused or disoriented like most post-code patients. They were searching, frantic even, locking on to Dr. Carter with startling clarity. He hadn't even had time to speak again before Michael rasped a hoarse, broken whisper through the dryness of his throat. "Where did the man go?" The words pierced the room. The nurses turned to each other, bewildered. Dr. Carter felt the floor tilt beneath him. "There wasn't any man here, Michael," he said carefully. "You were unconscious. You've been asleep for hours." Michael shook his head weakly, panic tightening his expression. "No, he was here, standing right next to you. I felt him, cold, heavy." His voice cracked. "He told me, not yet." Dr. Carter's chest constricted. The same cold, the same heaviness, the same impossible closeness. He tried to keep his voice calm, but something in him fractured. "What else did you feel?" Michael swallowed, tears gathering in the corners of his eyes. "I heard my daughter calling me," he whispered. "I was far, so far away, and everything went quiet. Then he was there, the man. I couldn't see him, but I knew he was close, too close." His breath trembled. He pulled me back. His wife, who had come in moments earlier, collapsed beside the bed, gripping his hand, crying softly. Dr. Carter watched the reunion, but his mind was spiraling. Michael had described precisely what he himself had felt, point for point, sensation for sensation. It wasn't coincidence. It wasn't imagination. And it wasn't explainable. As Dr. Carter stepped back, the truth settled over him like a shadow. Something had been in that room with them, and both of them knew it. After Michael stabilized and the immediate crisis passed, Dr. Carter retreated to the quiet of the staff lounge. For hours he stared at the data, replaying every moment of the code, every twitch of the monitors, every unexplainable sensation. He ran through every possible scientific explanation: electrical interference in the telemetry, lead misplacements, medication-induced spasms, oxygen fluctuations, even random brain activity. Nothing accounted for the precise timing. Nothing explained the awareness, the almost conscious interaction that had unfolded in the ICU room. He consulted colleagues. One suggested stress, an overworked mind projecting patterns where none exist. Another mentioned sympathetic hallucinations, noting that shared high-stress environments sometimes generate uncanny coincidences of perception. Dr. Carter listened politely, even nodded at times, but none of the explanations settled the tight knot in his stomach. He had spent nearly 2 decades trusting data, observations, and measurable evidence. And now, in a sterile, well-lit ICU, he had experienced something that resisted every rational framework. He revisited the science behind near-death experiences: oxygen starvation in the brain, temporal lobe activation, disconnection between hemispheres. These theories could explain hallucinations or perceptions during cardiac arrest, but not the shared nature of his experience with Michael. How could a sedated patient, under the influence of medications and unconscious by every measurable standard, mirror sensations that Dr. Carter himself had felt? It defied neurology, pharmacology, and probability alike. Emotionally, Dr. Carter wrestled with the tension between the known and the unknown. The rational part of his mind sought patterns, causes, answers. The part that had stood frozen beside Michael's bed, the part that had felt a presence too palpable to ignore, knew there was more than science could touch. For the first time in his career, he acknowledged